gentlemen. Were y'all a little tired last night?
You should have stuck around, Tom.
I don't think I would have made it home.
You wouldn't believe it.
Has an 1816 bourbon.
Why are we going 65 south, as Rick knows, when Nashville's north? Why are we going that way? The longest drive this morning, I want to show you things you've never been to. No one on the bus, even Clay, has been to Bell's Bend, Cumberland River. That's where they blockaded the river for 14 days, the Confederates, and had gunboat battles there, or fighting the gunboats, I mean. And so we're going 65 south about 4 miles or something, and then getting on 840. That goes east or to Murfreesboro or west. We're getting on 840 west, connecting with 40. That goes east-west. We're going to go 40 east. We could go back to Nashville, that's 18 miles, and go around Nashville, and then finally, so it's a little easier, I think, more this way. But it's Charlotte Pike, the most driving this morning, least traffic right now. I think it's the best way to go. So the smoke had cleared from the Battle of Franklin as the Federal vanguard arrives into Nashville. All of them were gone by 1:30 in the morning, and somewhere about midday, Schofield at the head arrives there. He slept for a day and a half. He's angry with Thomas, George H. Thomas. Why? Because Thomas is consolidating troops. A.J. Smith's Whiskey Corps, A.J. Whiskey Smith, he just come down from Missouri. The leading elements are coming down that Cumberland River right by Bell's Bend on November 30th. First and second, and then the river's blockaded on the 2nd in the afternoon. And Schofield said that Thomas left his little army out to dry, and wah, wah, wah. And so he comes in there, and they have a meeting. Schofield slept for a day and a half, and had a meeting. Wagner got in a lot of trouble because he disobeyed orders, and before he was going to be relieved, he asked for a leave of absence, and that because he was going to get shelled for disobeying orders at Franklin. I feel sorry for Wagner because he's a veteran from Shiloh, Stone River, Missionary Ridge, Atlanta Campaign on, and maybe he's worn out, just worn out. Grant, there's two components here for, well, Confederate and Federal, but two components for the Federals here is that Grant was, first of all, he was upset, Washington was upset, Lincoln was upset that the Confederates had moved on the capital of Tennessee, Nashville. Why didn't he meet about their attack? Remember the Federal Cavalry, their horses were just broken down. So there was a process. Thomas wanted the cavalry ready to go under Wilson. They went in Kentucky and got horses. They were taking the horses from the circus. Wilson even took Andrew Johnson's carriage horses. There were obviously some friction. I'm going to be looking this way so we don't miss the turn. There's some friction between Johnson, Andrew Johnson, future president, and James Wilson. And this word I could not pronounce. I had to get an old retired English teacher to tell me how to say this. Bumpchivious puppy. That's the third time you heard that. He didn't call him a damn puppy. He called him a bumpchivious puppy. And I couldn't even say the word. And I finally said, what does this mean? Silly, childlike, whatever. Bumpchivious. I'd like to use that word one day on somebody, but I won't say puppy. So trying to acquire horses. A man went to Kentucky to get horses for the cavalry. By now, with consolidating the troops, I'll describe that for the Federal Army, they're going to have 12,000 cavalry. About 9,000 of them will be mounted when the Battle of Nashville starts. And they're going to use that Wilson to extend that right hook, infantry with the right hook, and then the cavalry go around that right hook. And of course, with the Confederate cavalry, had their way with the Federal cavalry. They get to Nashville, and then Hood sends Forrest in time east to Murfreesboro. Bates Division As you may remember, T.B. Smith's Tennessee Georgia Brigade, a fine brigade, Florida's Finley, that was shot to hell in the Georgia campaign at Dallas and such, and Jackson's Georgia Brigade moved to Murfreesboro. The luckiest brigade in this Army of Tennessee was Palmer's brigade. They were not engaged at Franklin, went to Nashville, went to Murfreesboro, engaged at Murfreesboro, but stayed there, and then moved, of course, west to connect with Hood's Army on the retreat. We'll be pausing while I look at here. So Grant and the administration wanted Thomas to attack. Thomas was preparing. He never suffered a defeat. Remember, there's animosity between Grant and Thomas. Now, Brad Steele Wills didn't think it was too much about Shiloh. Others do. I was interested to hear him say that the other night. But nonetheless, and now there's wires. There's wires going to Richmond and Washington, by the way. But there's telegrams and wires going back and forth. Grant wanted Thomas to attack. I'm getting prepared, getting prepared. And then by the 6th, he was getting ready to attack. And then what occurs? It's 65 degrees. And still until December 7th. And then it starts raining. Then it starts sleeting. And then ice. And then snow. And more sleet. There were 3 inches of ice on things. Yes, the Federal Army is better supplied, but they were suffering like dogs out there too. Completely, not the Confederates, big time suffering. 1 Georgia in Snowball's Georgia Brigade, 42nd Georgia, and we're going to 840 West. They were digging holes and putting brush over it and having little fires inside those holes. And the smoke, where's the smoke going? He said later, he said that if he survived this war, he made it back home, he would never smoke a rabbit out of a hole again. I never knew they smoked rabbits out of holes. Did you? Did any of you know that? A lot of things. Old stuff I never knew. And they suffered terribly. By December 11th, they called it Cold Sunday. It was around zero, and they're living outside, both sides suffering terribly. And while this is going on, all those wires are going back and forth. He informed Grant about the terrible weather. And we don't want to go to Murfreesboro. We want to go the Dixon thing, or west. Grant knew about the weather. He concurred reluctantly. And now we're getting into December 11th and 12th, and the horses are coming back. And finally, there is a telegram by the 13th, I think, to relieve Thomas. Who's second in command at Nashville? Schofield. James Stedman, the Department of the Ottawa. He's commanding USCTs at Nashville, black troops. He sends a staff officer in there to find out who's, goes, yeah, it's coming from Schofield. It's coming from Schofield. He's stabbing Thomas in the back. And at a meeting where they concurred not to attack yet, everybody was there, except for Schofield. After they left, Wilson was talking with Thomas. And pretty much let him know it's Schofield. And Thomas couldn't believe it. And finally, Wilson said, who's second in command? Oh, now I understand. I understand. Ed Bars has confirmed this, among many. But let's go back. He told Wilson, by the way, Wilson, if they treat me like a child, they just leave me alone, we'll win this battle. And he was treated terribly, just terribly. But Thomas always did his job. One time a staff officer said to him, don't you feel that you've been treated terribly? He said, I've been teaching myself my whole life not to feel anything. When he finally received promotion he said, I got to earn this at Chickamauga. Let the Virginian wait. Remember what Lincoln said? Let the Virginian wait. Slow trot wasn't because he moved slow, because that was West Point. You know, they were riding. Slow trot, slow trot. They called him Old Pap. I don't know. Hell, they had a lot of nicknames for George H. Thomas. The Rock of Chickamauga, Slow Trot, Old Pap. What else? He would be called later the Sledgehammer of Nashville. We are going west, aren't we? Yeah. I'm talking and looking here. So A.J. Smith's Corps, they're coming from Missouri, consolidating at Nashville. A.J. Smith's coming down that Cumberland River and barely beat that blockade. James Stedman's is coming from Chattanooga area. David Stanley, who was wounded at Franklin, the one federal general, wounded the shoulder area at Franklin. James Stedman, when he was at Chattanooga, David Stanley said that he couldn't get anything out of him. He was making love to the Princess Salam Salam and drinking champagne. He was a political general, but he had capabilities. But his department command was being brought into Nashville, and that is 2 brigades of USCT soldiers, or black soldiers, Federals. You'll hear about them today, the first and second day. Since Stanley was wounded, T.J. Wood was placed in command of the 4th Corps. Schofield, the 23rd Corps. And you have Wilson's Cavalry, as well as A.J. Smith's Corps. On the day of the Battle of Nashville, there was only 7,000 Federal soldiers at Nashville. Very unprofessional soldiers, clerks, unprofessional, whatever. The extensive line of trenches built during the war, and started at the hour. Fort Negley was built in 1862 by slave and free blacks. Yes, they would surround the barber shops and surround the churches and take the free blacks and impress them to work. About 2,400 were made to work. Many died. There was a great contingent of free blacks in Nashville that were bricklayers and barbers and whatever. A great contingent of free African Americans there as well. So these orders continuously, I want to repeat, from Grant: attack, attack, attack. Grant got so upset about it, he had already gone to City Point and was going to get and come to Nashville. He had already sent Blackjack Logan down here as well to possibly take command. The weather starts warming up, that we'll touch on later, on the 14th, and then on the 15th, the Battle of Nashville starts. The telegram had already been approved to relieve Thomas, and I cannot remember this man's name, but a lieutenant, held the telegram.
It was Major Eckert.
Yes, Major Eckert. Thank you. Major Eckert held the telegram. Well, that's a hell of a. That's ballsy, isn't it? You know, that's right. That's ballsy. He thought he was going to be executed for it, and of course, the Battle of Nashville starts on the 15th.
And the backstory of that is when he told Stan just patted him on the shoulder and said you did well.
He did, Maurice. T.C. Eckert, that was his name. Yes, I remember. Thank you. Boy, that took a lot of guts, and I'm glad he did. You know, eventually in time, we should connect with 40 east and west. Of course, to your left is west. We're going to get on 40 east and go back toward Nashville. Major T.C. Eckert. Thomas came so close to being relieved. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. But so now on the Confederate side, there's things going to Richmond too. Hood claimed 4,500 casualties at Franklin. We know it's about 3,000 more. He said for 4 or 5 generals that were wounded and killed. Well, there were, and I'm not saying he's lying at all. I'm just saying that he didn't know all the details yet.